Hi to my support system, my significant other, Cindy, who helps hold the whole thing together at my house. But 5 years or so ago, I was blessed with the opportunity to serve the Dads and Moms of Michigan organization. We're a child advocacy organization that helps children by helping their parents understand how to be better binuclear parents.
Binuclear, most people don't understand the word binuclear. Would you explain that a little bit?
Binuclear parenting, yes, and that's a very good question, Bob. Binuclear parenting is when you have an intact relationship. The children live with both their mother and their father it's referred to as a nuclear family. When there's a division, a divorce or a separation, or similar domestic relations action, there's lots of different ways that it can be coined. But the parents now have separated, and the children have a binuclear existence because they have two nuclear homes, such binuclear. One with the mother,
mom's house and dad's house.
Mom's house and dad's house, exactly. So we help parents learn how to respect boundaries, how to see things from the children's perspective, basically how to be better binuclear parents, which you always got to cooperate with your co-parent, even in an intact relationship. That becomes progressively more difficult when there's a divorce or a separation. So we're a child advocacy organization that assists parents so that they can be better parents, and that's how we serve the children.
You have several programs available through Dads and Moms of Michigan. Is it supervised parenting and the DEP program? Can you
Well, yeah,
go a little bit more into that?
we have our service offerings split into several segments. One, we provide supervised parenting time and exchanges, and what that allows is for parents, for one reason or another, that the court has deemed the children need to be protected and ensure that certain things don't happen until certain behaviors are corrected by a parent. We will monitor the visit so that the children can still have a continued relationship with their parent. We also do supervised exchanges. In a lot of divorce situations, the parents will do the exchange of the child at the police station, which isn't very healthy because the children know, even at a very tender age, that people go to the police station because somebody's in trouble. So they have this negative impact. So we let them do the transfers at our facility. But the biggest thing that we do is actually provide education to the parents. And we have two components to that. One is the After Divorce Effective Parenting Together workshop. And the other is our free family law assistance groups. And the free family law assistance groups happen on every third Monday, not the third Monday of the month, which is a common confusion, but every third Monday. And we have an educational segment presented by a subject matter expert. Half of them are family law related procedures and practices, and the other are more family and parenting. We deal with things like parental alienation, or as it's called, the other name that it's called too is emotional child abuse after divorce. We deal with communicating with an uncooperative co-parent. All of this was designed to be an extension of the Oakland County SMILE program that was created by retired Circuit Court Judge Sosnick. And we've been working very closely with the judge on formalizing the marriage in between the Dads and Moms Family Law Assistance Group and the existing SMILE program, which is an hour-and-a-half long. And we hope to have a segment in the near future to talk about how that's breaking out and all of that goodness. But we're going to help with the Partnership for Dads conference. We're an education organization. The Partnership for Dads folks are an education organization. And we're going to provide some content. Judge Sosnick's going to be speaking to talk about the SMILE program and the Dads and Moms breakout sessions. And we're going to have Judge Ryan, who is a probate judge in Oakland County, but before she was a judge was one of the better family law attorneys out there, so she understands parental alienation at a very high level. And she's going to be joined by Dr. Dahlia Berkovitz, who's on our board of directors at Dads and Moms of Michigan. And they're going to talk about how you can cope with being an alienated parent and still leave a lasting impression or legacy on your children's lives, no matter what situation is presented to you as a father or as a parent, that it's how you react to that situation that ends up being the true legacy for your children. And our children are all of our legacies, whether we want to accept that or not. We're here today and we're going to create the next wave of humanity that is our children. And there is no bigger responsibility as a human than being a parent.
Well,
So,
Kevin, would you talk about your partnership on this program, with the Partnership for Dads and Dads and Moms of Michigan?
Sure.
How that's working out?
Absolutely. It's a terrific opportunity for both groups to reach out beyond our normal audiences. And John mentions the legacy of a father, which feeds in perfectly into what we're hoping to accomplish at the 2014 Michigan Fathers Conference.
That'll be what date?
That's on February 8th. It's a Saturday.
Where?
And it's at the Oakland Schools Center, which is in Waterford, off North Telegraph, just west of the Oakland County Court complex. Beautiful facility donated by Oakland Schools. They're a fantastic supporter of the event and have been for many years. They have a terrific facility in that off the main atrium there's a classroom called the Fishbowl, which is a glass enclosed room, and that's going to be the headquarters for Dads and Moms of Michigan during the conference, and there's going to be programming in the Fishbowl throughout the day that's specifically targeted for divorced and never married dads, and moms too, because of course women are welcome at the event and we always have moms attend the Fathers Conference. And John's already talked a little bit about some of that programming, but the idea is to show that the program is for dads from all walks of life, that it's not just for dads who are married, it's not just for dads who are married for the first time. We all have different experiences, and the focus should be on being better fathers for our children. So the theme for this year's event, for example, tying in with what John just mentioned, is a father's legacy. And as John says, we all leave our children a legacy. They are our legacy. And it's very important for us to understand how influential we are in their lives, both for positive and for negative. And this past year, one of the founders of our group, Tom Fitzpatrick, who actually was the first keynote speaker at the very first event in 1999, passed away after a long illness. So one of the things that led us to develop the theme of a father's legacy was to honor Tom, because he was such a popular speaker. He was a therapist for families and couples, and he was an eloquent voice for the important role that fathers can play in their children's lives. So partially in memory of Tom, we're bringing in a young lady named Alex Zaslow to be the keynote speaker at the event this year. And Alex's father, Jeff Zaslow, was a great supporter of our group, was a reporter for the Wall Street Journal, and wrote many best-selling books, including a book called The Last Lecture, which was #1 on the bestseller list for a couple of years. Several years ago, Jeff was our keynote speaker talking about the legacy that a father can leave. Tragically, a year later, he was killed in an accident. And Alex is now a young lady working in New York. She's generously offered to come back and talk about her father, his legacy, and the positive things we can leave our children, whether we are, I hope we're all going to be here for a long time, but we don't know. And whether we're going to be here for a short time or a long time, our children will remember us and live in our shadow to some extent. So it's very important that we understand that theme.
You have other speakers. I think, if I recall, Chris Edwards, Channel 7 newscaster, has been a speaker there too.
Yeah, Chris has been our host for the event for several years.
Yeah.
He'll be kicking off the event, and then he'll also be hosting the end of the day event where we bring all the fathers together for an interactive discussion.
So we have a good powerhouse of speakers to talk about very good several events. And I kind of use the analogy that mom and dad, when your child's born, how many times did you find a book pop out on how to take care of that kid exactly? How did you learn how to be a parent? It's called Read a Book. In my area, it was called Dr. Spock, and what I look at. So this is a way of educating dads, and also women. Moms are invited to this conference.
Absolutely.
So we can learn together how to parent our kids better.
That's
Is
right.
that basically the premise?
Yeah, and Bob, one of the things I've learned over the years is that women are much more likely to read the books. I
You're
think
right.
maybe all of us had the experience when we were expecting our first children that our wives had a huge stack of books on the nightstand, and we didn't have any. And either that's because we already knew it or we didn't know how much we didn't know. But I find, I've been in parenting education for almost 20 years now, and I find women are much more likely to step forward and agree that they don't know something about parenting and try to learn about it. Men are less likely to do that. I don't think that's because they're arrogant or egotistical. We're all very busy.
It's their biological makeup, I think.
Perhaps.
Biological makeup, mentality for men and women are different.
And men respond very well to the idea of a live workshop, a live keynote from someone who's knowledgeable, someone who's like them. We don't tend to bring in national experts, quote unquote, to speak at the conference because we find it's much more relatable for men to hear from people who are more like them. Doesn't mean it's all men. We have female presenters. As I mentioned, Alex Zaslow is going to be the keynote this year. But what it does mean is that we do try to present things in a way that's acceptable or is more likely to reach men. And men are unlikely to sit down and read a 300-page parenting book, but every year we get hundreds of men to come to the event and learn and interact, hear from other men about what it takes to be a great dad.
I assume you have some handouts, so in case when I'm at a conference, there's something I can take back with me as a member.
Absolutely.
What time does it begin?
Registration starts at 8 a.m.
Yes.
and then the program begins towards 9 a.m. It just depends on
Yeah.
how many people we have to run through registration.
And is it an all-day workshop, or?
It is. It's set up so that there's a keynote address in the morning. Actually, Mojo in the morning from the radio program is going to do a kickoff at the very beginning, and then Alex will speak, and then there will be the first set of workshops, which are on more specific topics, and those are all available on the website, partnershipfordads.org. Then there's a luncheon, and then there are 2 more workshops in the afternoon. And at the end of the day, there's a workshop where we bring all the men together back into the main room, and we have an interactive discussion that Chris Edwards leads about several of the topics that have been touched upon during the day.
I was there last year, and I thought it was a very interesting workshop. But some workshops, I want to go to both of them at the same time. What can we do? You have handouts to help me
We
follow?
do, and every year we try to structure the workshops with that in mind, because we know that people sometimes encounter conflict. So we do audio recording of all the workshops, and that's available on our website. So if you want to listen to it, you can. We do videotaping of the main event and a couple of the other workshops, and again, that's available on partnershipfordads.org.
And Dads and Moms of Michigan is working as a partnership with us, or tell me more about that.
We've been working together for years.
Yes.
We're both education organizations. Dads and Moms of Michigan is very gender neutral. We deal mostly with co-parenting, people that are divorced or separated, or one of the many, many variants of it. But what we found when looking at the material and the content, that parenting is parenting, and learning to communicate with your co-parent is communicating with your co-parent. A lot of the problems and disputes that intact families have are the same that separated families have. It's about communication. And I heard Kevin talked about something that I'd like to add something to.
Please do.
Men aren't the greatest communicators in the world.
So how are you doing, Dad? I'm fine.
Fine.
Mom? Yes. How are you doing, Mom? Mom, this, so we have different ways of expressing ourselves. It's the way our brain structure is. If you go to the anatomy of it,
So you know,
they expand on this.
men,
We say, get to
men
the
don't
point.
sit around the coffee pot talking about their domestic issues that they're having at home with their children, and the day-to-day coordination and communication with your spouse, your partner. And the world is evolving. It's hard to, men don't know exactly how they're supposed to behave anymore. Women don't know how they're supposed to behave. In the old days when I was growing up, I don't think I ever watched my dad change a diaper. My generation, I have no memory of learning to change a diaper. It's something I've always known how to do. I've got 3 older sisters and 2 younger. So my younger sisters came into the world when I was 5 or 6, so I started out putting my thumb on the diaper. I've always been able to burp a baby and to change a diaper, where my dad never, ever, because it wasn't socially acceptable. But with this role modification that's happened, men need some help understanding on how to be the new modern man, if I will. Yeah. And it's hard to define, and there aren't any real roles and responsibilities. And the stay-at-home dad isn't very socially accepted. I'm a full-time custodial father, and I'm very blessed and very lucky to do that. One of my problems in society is that when I tell people that I'm that, people ask immediately where the mother is, and it's got a whole other story. But I know that when a single custodial mother tells somebody that that's their situation, that's socially acceptable, and that man who's absent, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So it's a different perception from being a single custodial father from being a single custodial mother. And in today's day of age, there are more and more men that are performing a non-traditional role in the home. The new traditional role and the non-traditional role are the same thing to me. They're learning to be part caretaker of, nurturer of the child, while still maintaining the responsibility to be the provider.
I was the youngest in my family, so obviously I didn't get to see any of 2. So obviously I didn't get to see anybody being diapered. And when my kids were born, I quickly read this book on how to, diapering. And at my time, they didn't have the disposable bottles. We had the glass bottles we had to sterilize. And was interesting, and I'm diapering my daughter, and oh, there's a little problem here. I took her to the doctor, and oh, she had a hernia.
So there's a logical...
So I learned, you know, by the seat of my pants. It sounds like World War I. When you fly a plane, we learn by the seat of our pants. This is a group here to go from that point forward so we can learn more how to take care of our kids.
That's right, Bob. There's an amazing amount of wisdom among all the men, fathers, grandfathers, sons in our community. And it's a tragedy in some ways that we don't communicate more.
We don't share it.
We'll share more. We'll share the way men share.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to look like what women do.
Yeah.
But imparting that wisdom is such a big part of why we do what we do and why we put on the Fathers Conference every year. It's absolutely inspirational to watch the men at the end of the day, because one of the main things they get out of the conference is not from the speakers or the so-called experts. It's connecting with other dads like themselves. And they walk out of there making new friends, and they walk out of there with the support of knowing that they're not the only guy who wants to be more involved. They're not the only one who wants to be a better dad, that we all want that in one way or another, and we're trying to do the best we can.
Is there theories on how to raise kids emotionally involved in that?
Yes, there are speakers who talk about how to become more connected with your children. We always have Ted Browdy, who's an expert on boys, one of our most popular speakers, who talks about raising sons. We also have workshops that are directed towards fathers of daughters. So we try to hit upon basically everything you would want to know. Of course, we only have one day, and we like to turn over the content. So every year is different. And if we don't hit on something this year, we may hit upon it next year. For example, for years we've been trying to find a good speaker to talk about blended families. And it's difficult to find someone who knows what they're talking about and can do it in an engaging way. And I'm thrilled that this year we have Dr. Bernie Less from Wayne State, who's a fantastic speaker. I've seen Bernie many times, and this year he's managed to fit us into his schedule, and he's going to be addressing blended families.
Is another name for blended families like step parenting?
Yes, it's what you might call step parenting.
Yeah.
The terminology is changing.
There's been movies on that. What's that one? The step mom and a bunch of other movies about step parenting. People use the word step parenting as negative.
Exactly.
When I got married the second time, my current wife, I couldn't. As far as I'm concerned, she's on a pedestal when it comes to helping me with my kids. Innately, she seemed to know better. Some people don't have that. I was lucky in that case. So this is a workshop in order to help.
That's right. It's a very
step parenting is
challenging.
kind of look as a negative.
Yes.
Blended families, I think, is a better word for it.
Yeah, it's very challenging. I have my former wife just got engaged. She's going to be getting married next year. And people have asked me, does that bother you? Do you feel like you're being replaced with your kids? And I'm the custodial parent for my kids, but we have almost an equal parenting time schedule.
Good.
But it doesn't threaten me at all. The man my ex-wife is marrying is a wonderful guy. He's going to be involved in my children's lives every day. Why wouldn't I want him to be a wonderful guy? Why would I want it to be a negative experience for anybody? It's a challenging experience, and I think it's one of those things we have to address. And some of the lessons that step families face are the same ones that regular families face or traditional families face. And that's something John mentioned.
Yeah.
We can't hold up the traditional family as something without warts or problems, because we know that's not true. And we shouldn't point to families that are non-traditional as inherently unstable, because we know that's not true. We ought to work together to share our wisdom.
Well, I hate to share this one example. It's called Fiddler on the Roof. Tradition. The show is back in the old Eastern Europe, how things change, and they married somebody outside the religion. And we have different variations in this same theme here. Nowadays, people are not marrying necessarily the same nationality, the same religion, and how do we handle these various blended families? And that's been a very, very difficult issue for people to follow through.
And it's dad's and mom's view
Yeah.
that of all the workshops that are in the most significant, and it's a new one, is the blended families one, because being part of a blended family is now normal. If you're not part of a blended family, you have a situation that is outside the norm, which means, even though that can be offensive to people, less than 50% is less than the norm. More than 50% is greater than the norm, and the norm is 50%. When my daughter started middle school, the middle school principal at Walled Lake Geisler told me that 60% of the children do not live with both biological parents. So this is a 12-year-old in Walled Lake. This is the metrics. These are the dynamics. So understanding that is fundamental to understanding how to be a better parent. I was very blessed. I've been divorced twice. My first wife married a wonderful man, a guy named Roger, and I could not have handpicked a better stepdad. And everybody was bizarred. I got the same questions that Kevin was receiving. Are you offended? I believe it takes a village. The more people that love the child, the better off the child is, especially when they're fit, competent people. And my son's stepdad, or his other father as I refer to it, is fit, competent, and did an absolutely phenomenal job. And they got married when my son was 5, and played just as much a role in who my son became as I did.
The biological father and the biological mother, the step-parents are not necessarily dad or mom, but sometimes it depends on how we communicate this with our current spouse and our former spouse.
So in understanding the dynamics, and Roger did a great job, especially in the early part, of not pushing his will too much, and he understood the boundaries, and actually the relationship was kind of funny because I had to pull him in. I wanted him to be more active. What does Roger think? You know, and initially he wasn't sure how to react to that because he was expecting, we've talked about this, so he was expecting me to be adversarial and to push him away. Well, that was silly. He wasn't going anywhere. My son was going to live in his house a great deal of the time. Me resisting something that simply was not in anybody's best interest, assuredly my son. So I saw it out of my son's eyes. He was going to have 2 positive, productive role models.
Good.
At a minimum 1, Roger, and then I was going to try to coach myself up a little bit to step up to the table. In all seriousness, my son was blessed that he had 2 dads.
Part of this Partnership for Dads is educating the general public, dads and moms, about, we got all kinds of rumors. We had therapists in the past that, I don't want to mention the therapist's name, I don't want his book to be read again. He says, you got to reason everything with the kids. Well, what's discipline mean? How do we discipline the kids? A lot of times we hear about timeouts, taking like punishments, and there's all kinds of theories on how do you discipline a kid nowadays. We need to educate our parents, our parents nowadays, how can we best work with kids when there's a problem, to avoid problems.
Is that being addressed in the workshop?
It is. We always have
Yeah.
discipline-oriented workshops. That's something that's always addressed within the specialized workshops that are for boys and girls, because discipline issues are very different for sons and daughters. And I think our presenters do a great job of explaining that. Several years ago, I was lucky enough to co-author a book with Jim Wendell, who is a noted psychologist and focuses on discipline issues. And we called it The Father Style Advantage. And the focus of the book was on how dads tend to discipline children differently than mothers, and how it can be a very positive experience. And the idea was that men and women, moms and dads, complement each other in a good way, and that doing it all her way or doing it all his way is not the best way, that the best way is a cooperative fashion. And I think one of the things people struggle with is that roles are changing so rapidly, as John mentioned, and as you mentioned, socially, the family is changing at a tremendously rapid rate, and it's threatening to a lot of people because the traditional, quote-unquote, family was so traditional for so long, people thought it was something that would never change.
What's traditional nowadays?
Exactly.
With traditional nowadays,
The name is,
wasn't
the
the
term
same
is
as in
outmoded.
1900. It's outmoded. Yes,
That's right.
entirely.
So that does
Yeah.
confront parents with a lot of discipline problems, and part of the issue is that there are more people involved in that decision-making process. It's not just a stay-at-home mom dealing with the problem or saying, wait until your father gets home.
Yeah.
It's a bigger community, but it can be a very positive development if it's looked at the right way.
I remember seeing a little cartoon. This is when basically men were more in the workplace than women, and the boss yelled at the dad, at the father, and the father came home and yelled at the mother yelled at the kid kicked the dog.
Right.
So it's that was then. Nowadays, we kick everybody sometimes.
I was going to say, we all get kicked at
We all
some
get
point
kicked.
now, right?
How do we handle this? How do we handle discipline? How do we handle variations? And Partnership with Dads is a nice educational program, and Dads and Moms of Michigan, a 501c3 organization, is interested in the, as a child advocate, how can we help parents be parents better? And one thing I want to thank you, John, you being here as president of Dads and Moms of Michigan. This beautiful set here has been funded by Dads and Moms of Michigan, and I can't thank you enough for this, making a beautiful set here. allowing us to have this.
Well, thanks. Dads and Moms is all about education, and we're very, very happy to be working with you, Bob, and trying to bring all this information to the general public. We talked about tradition real quick, if I can just real second. Tradition drifts and changes. Okay, so
we work at different education. In this program, Dads and Moms of Michigan, Michigan Divorce Matters, what can we do in the future to help you, the public, understand various issues
Right.
that you have that you'd like to have us bring on Michigan Divorce Matters? We're here to help you educate your children on various issues of divorce. And I'd like to thank John, thank you very much, and Kevin,
A pleasure.
for being here to help educate our public. What can we do to help you? If you, the public, have a thought of a program you'd like to see on Michigan Divorce Matters, feel free to email me. You'll see it on the website at rmhack.com, or call me at 248-335-6000. We're here to help you, the public, on various issues of parenting and divorce. Thank you for watching Michigan Divorce Matters. I appreciate your thoughts.